Hello, I'm Philippe Bechter, Chief Economist at Natixis Asset Management in Paris. It's my first Periscope, so be indulgent. I wanted to comment on the IMF economic outlook, and specifically on the third chapter of the publication. In this chapter, the IMF clearly said that the 2009-08 crisis has had a strong and persistent effect. There will be no convergence to the pre-crisis trend. The current one is below the pre-crisis trend and will remain below it. Moreover, the GDP potential growth rate will be lower than before the crisis. This means that there will be a divergence between the pre-crisis trend and the current one. The IMF is trying to understand if the economy will be able to go back to its pre-crisis normal framework, or if we have to think on a new normal framework. That's the only pertinent question. Economists have already started to think about a new normal framework. Larry Summers, in November 2013, at an IMF event, spoke of secular stagnation. It's the idea that due to an excess of saving, growth would be low for an extended period. More recently, Alice Rivling from the Brookings Institution gave a speech on the impact of a long-term zero inflation rate. In other words, our academics start thinking of a world where growth trend would be low and the inflation rate close to zero. The IMF publication is in the same mood. In developed countries, the Institute said that aging population and the lack of investment will create conditions for a lower growth rate. Aging population reduces the labor force and low investment is a drag for productivity improvement. In emerging countries, the question is not so different. There is still an aging population, but also a change in the growth rate, in the growth process, which means that lower investment rate will be the normal framework in the future. In fact, in many emerging countries, higher incomes have led to a stronger consumption momentum, and the economic model is now rebalancing to a higher consumption framework and lower investment. At the same time, the productivity gap between developed and emerging countries has been reduced, and the catch-up effect is not as strong as it used to be. The expected growth trend for developed countries is plus 1.6% per year from 2015 to 2020. It was 2.25% before the crisis. For emerging countries, the expected growth rate is 5.2% for the same period versus 6.5% before the crisis. Two conclusions from this analysis. First, fiscal and monetary policies will necessarily be different. Central banks' interest rates will remain close to zero, to the zero lower bound, and if the inflation rate is low, we will have to expect a more active fiscal policy. The second is that we will have to think differently to reduce imbalances. Usually, we thought that a strong growth period will close most macroeconomic imbalances. Maybe this will be different now. There is no determinism in this framework, and probably the world tomorrow will behave differently with robots. The world is changing very rapidly, and winners will be countries that will be able to adapt to a new and volatile framework. So, that's the point. That was my first Periscope. I hope that it was good for you, and I will come back